This video is brought to you in part by the patrons of the Lazy Eyebrow, and from the comments and watch time from viewers like you. Thank you!
You know why you're here, don't you? More silence. Have you considered trying a new strategy?
Why fix what isn't broken?
Except in this case, silence won't help you now. It took a lot of energon to obtain this information, keeping Triptychon's data core running every known search algorithm in our database just to find something. Anything to tip us off as to who you really are. And finally, we have it!
Is this supposed to mean something?
Well, it's you, isn't it?
But this doesn't prove anything! You've got nothing!
Cut the dross, Punch! We've got video surveillance of this interaction that dead matches you at the location. We have a confirmed online signature of your involvement in the movement of the stolen ocular apparatus. We know it was you.
I doubt that. I wouldn't be sitting here listening to this fascinating story you've conjured if you actually had anything. So, I call your false positive here.
Alright, fine. You know, I wanted to do this the easy way, but you've got to work with me. So you can either tell me what I know is true and save us all an evening of blue screens, or you can deal with my partner, who tends to be a little less forgiving. What do you say? Alright, so be it.
Are you Ladies Man 217?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Are you Ladies Man 217?
Yeah?
Where is the item 21153? Where are the glasses?
The bad cop, crazy cop routine. Never fails.
Why hello YouTube, greetings from the Lazy Eyebrow to a double figure review. This is the review for Generation Select's Dominus Criminal Pursuit, an Amazon exclusive set featuring a reissued and recolored Power of the Prime's Counterpunch and a remolded Earthrise smokescreen into Earth Mode Barricade. Special thanks to this episode to Citra for providing this pack way back in March, otherwise I more than likely would have skipped this one, and thank goodness I didn't, because man oh man, Barricade be looking fine. Punch on the other hand is alright. Like, his vehicle mode itself is pretty good. In fact, the mold itself looks positively fantastic, especially compared to other modern-day car releases. Like, this one actually features a fully complete car the whole way around, which just feels more and more rare these days. But in general, I like this whole sort of supercar vibe to it. Gone are any hints of Counterpunch being the Pontiac Fiero he once was back in the day, which, while it may have been one of the greatest supercars from 1983, this is also a nice updated take. What we end up being left with is this shape that, in my eyes, strongly evokes the Bugatti Veyron, but being crossed with the visual cues of something like the Camaro, as seen in the taillights, or even a Chevy Volt or a Cadillac Sienne. Basically, I see a lot of GM visual inspiration applied to the shape of a Veyron, and altogether it just sort of works as a fictional supercar to turn Punch into. Other than that, I also love the little car details they worked into the mold. The 3-tier hood vents molded in looked great. I love the molded tread in the tires. It's not complete, but I get there's restrictions on what you can do with an injection mold, and what they've done here still looks great anyway. These 6-spoke rims look absolutely fantastic, and the fact they did the extra step in molding in lug nuts is the icing on the cake. But that's not all in the slightest, for removing the wheel will give us a look at that brake work. Like, look at all that detail! Like, you have these slotted rotors, the molded caliper, and that's hit me where I live, man, no doubt about it. On the other hand, though, someone seems to have gone a little overboard on this whole detailing concept, and now Counterpunch features 2 brake rotors. The actual one, where I mentioned the slots and caliper, and then what's actually the wheel well sporting the drilled rotor holes, meaning Punch features the largest brake system known to man. So large, in fact, that even his calipers can't handle surface area of this magnitude. Anyway, one nice thing about the way the whole thing transforms is that the shins are down here making this sort of undercarriage for most of the vehicle. Like, if you ignore most of the front of the car or even play with the idea of printing an engine for the cavity in the front, this could actually pass off as a semi-decent vehicle mode without much hint of transformability, so that's neat. In short, as a vehicle mode, I think Counterpunch does a fairly good job at being a vehicle. It's a really nice looking car with some fun little details that really help sell the figure as a supercar, and that just does it for me. What does it even more for me, though, is his original release from Power of the Primes. This was how he originally came from 2018, and quite frankly, I love this so much better. Not just because I'm sucker for a dark blue, but because of all the extra detailing this release received. First of all, yes, this is a darker, more screen and toy accurate blue. I'm not entirely sure why the new release elected to go with this lighter shade, much less do I understand the yellow stripe added, but yeah, the original does look better, especially with the very hard to miss red wheels which draw so much attention to themselves as a superior color scheme. Other little details added include this side turn signal indicator being picked out in silver, as well as the grilling underneath the headlights and main grille also receiving this silver treatment. Of all those little things, they just make this release feel like the superior version. The blue is a lot richer, the details pop against it, and there's none of this weird yellow striping that's never been a feature until 2021, unless of course there's some comic somewhere that I didn't bother looking up that did. And if there is, well, I hope whoever's a fan of that likes this new color scheme. Anyway, all this aside, let's take a gander at this character I skipped in Siege. This is, for all intents and purposes, Earthrise Barricade. And what a figure! I've already gushed endlessly during the Blue Streak and Smokescreen review about how much I love this mold, and until I had Barricade in hand did I realize how good it could look in black. Like, just look at this thing! Before someone asks, there are indeed 2 mods installed on mine. First off being my 70s Fair Lady headlight replacement, which you can find links to down below. It's literally just 2 screws in the hood and the whole thing replaces quite easily. Second, the wheels have been replaced with Robot 78 new wheels. He's made a new design that fits over the existing peg system and caps itself off quite nicely. This does mean that the rim extends past the fender a little bit, but if that's the sacrifice made to cover up the visible peg syndrome, I will happily take that trade. So yeah, Barricade here looks stunning. I love the glossy black making its way down the whole length of the car. However, I really appreciate that they didn't just leave it that way and added a matte charcoal to the hood. It's such a great addition that keeps it visually interesting while still keeping the overall theme. I also really like the fact that instead of reusing the prowl mode, they elected to use Smokescreen. The added front bumper kit just gives Barricade the feel that he's a cop that will use any advantage he can to stay ahead of the curve and be the best at what he does. That being said, however, I do have one nitpick. It would appear that they forgot to do anything with the back of the vehicle, which, given how great the rest of it looks, this just feels like an odd omission. Like, for a whole alt mode that otherwise looks really well polished, coming back here and seeing everything left unpainted, it just feels off. Even something as simple as taillights would have really gone a long way. But even with that shortcoming, I really do feel like they've taken the best of all they've done of the Earthrise mold and dumped it into one character that at one point was just known as a movie character. And it's such a great alternate take of the character. Of course, I am aware that he at one point originally was a G1 character turned into a blue F1 car, but at this point in time, this is what everyone thinks of when you mention Barricade, and to make a G1 version of him, and one of better uses of the Datsun mold at that just hits me where I live, man. And look at that! Now you can have 2 generations of that short-lived rivalry from the first movie. Feel free to sprinkle in some punch to tag along for some glasses hunting. Now let's do some size comparisons. Here's Netflix Bumblebee, Studio Series Clunker Bee, and Studio Series Concept Camaro Bee, Earthrise Blue Streak, Prowl, and Smokescreen, Official Kingdom Sideswipe, Custom Kingdom Sideswipe, and Alternate Universe Kingdom Sideswipe, Kingdom Huffer, Optimus Prime, and Earthrise Trailbreaker, Earthrise Cliffjumper, Bug Mike customized into a character I call Twin Cam, and Titan's Windcharger. And finally, Studio Series Hot Rod, Blur, and Takara Legends RC. As for accessories, this double pack comes with 4. Shoulder cannons and the blaster from the Datsuns, and the same blaster as seen in the special edition from 3 years ago. Storage for Barricade involves the hood and the roof, which looks doofy, I'm not going to lie there. Counterpunch, though, gets 2 places, one being on the roof, the other being this tab on the bottom, where a hole in the handle of the gun will pop onto it, and look at that! Undercarriage storage on a figure. You don't see that too often these days. Honestly, why something like this isn't included on the Datsun mold is a bit confusing. Like, look at all the room under here. It's not official, but you could absolutely fit everything under here and wedge the rifle in a certain way to have it all fit, and still have clearance to roll your wheels. So it's not like it couldn't have been designed in, but it's neither here nor there. So that's my review for the alt modes for both Barricade and Punch. While Barricade, I feel, makes fantastic use of an existing mold, Counterpunch just feels like a weaker recoloring of a better existing version. That doesn't take away from their molding, however, which is great no matter which version you own. Anyway, let's take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsor and then jump into Transformation.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
This episode of Lazy Eyebrow is brought to you by the fact that your kids are in the next room and they're being a little too quiet for their own good. Probably go check on that.
We now return to the Transformers.
Well, with that out of the way, let's move on to Transformation. On Punch, open up more or less the entirety of vehicle mode. On the bottom, remove the gun storage and then unfold the legs from the rest of the body. Fold over the window, then fold up the doors to make feet, then close up the legs. On the top, separate the sides of the hood from the center and move the arms down to the side. Open up the faux roof and fold up the remaining hood section into it, then close it all up. Then splay the hood sections to the side for counterpunch. Finally, on the back, make sure the helmet is down for the punch side, and flip down the Autobot symbol to completely fool the Decepticon forces.
Again.
But with the blast shield down, I can't even see! How am I supposed to fight? To transform the Datsun mold, start by opening up the doors. Fold up the arms and pull them apart. Rotate down the feet. Rock the windshield and whole front of the car forward to give clearance for the legs, and then extend them. Separate the legs. Flip the heel down and rotate around this panel. Rotate at the waist. On the hood, fold down the hood scoop. Move the hood over the head like your Datsun is getting dressed for the day and slot the hood scoop into the chest. Take the shoulder joints and tab them into the armpits to lock it all together. Rotate the arms down. And if everything was done right and it's all aligned correctly, there's small notches on the doors that will rest on side view mirrors. And here we have robot mode. And, wow. I don't think any release of any figure has really showcased the new size discrepancies more than this set. Counterpunch here released during the tail end of the Prime Wars trilogy before everything shrunk for War for Cybertron and the prices were jacked up. And no, fair's fair, size doesn't mean quality. Like, take a look at this lineup, and while sure they're all bigger, Barricade just exudes quality that especially Wheeljack and Jazz just lack. But regardless of all that, to get both these figures in the same set, they both being deluxe class, and the Punch figure being a full head taller despite them both being cars, just feels weird. That aside, let's talk about Counterpunch. Something seen constantly in his on-screen appearance is the underside of the car wherever you look at the shoulders. I feel this is why they included the yellow striping at the bottom of the Dominus release, as it's not all that easy to see in the 2018 version. And considering that's what they were going for, I suppose it doesn't look all that terrible. However, again, as mentioned in vehicle mode, the lack of red rims really does not do the Dominus set justice. Like, they just sort of feel there, versus the accurate red wheels that punch you in the face and say, "Look at me!" The new paint chosen for the face does make a nice color contrast, though. It's no longer just left the molded color that the rest of the body is, like its original release did, which makes it a little more interesting visually. And it's also a color they elected to use for the hands. Again, inaccurate, but an interesting design choice I'm not necessarily opposed to. One thing I don't understand, however, is their choice to use black panels on the arms. Judging by what else is black, my guess is these panels are part of the same mold as the biceps, hips, and the chest piece, as when compared to the original, you see that all those pieces turn to blue. However, that just leaves this panel sticking out as a random patch of black on the forearm. Finally, we get to the shins, and other than the aforementioned striping and rims, they're more or less the same. So that was Counterpunch. I like what they've done for the character in general. It's a shame some of the new molding decisions have left his colors a bit off, but the new take by no means is ruined in that regard. To get him to his true punchy self, just turn the figure around and you're most of the way there. All you gotta do now is put Counterpunch's helmet down or Decepticon symbol away, then take the shoulder panels and lift them, rotate them, and swing them down here until they tab into the shoulders, and finally flip the hands around and punch. Honestly, I feel like this side of the character works a little weaker. I mean, it's great that they were able to work the whole double agent gimmick in, but between the two, I just feel like Counterpunch works a little better design-wise than Punch. Not to say he's bad or anything, I just find this mode comes off a little less dynamic or interesting to look at than Counterpunch, which is fine, I guess, and helps differentiate the two characters. As for differences in release, there's not much beyond a slightly different color palette. Basically, it's just the thighs of the 2018 gets painted to detail to emulate the 1987 toy release, which I think adds a certain flair that's absent from the reissue. Finally, accessories. He just gets the one blaster. This blaster was seen in the Headmaster's cartoon, which if you're an on-screen accuracy junkie, then this should serve you well, as he gets neither his Autobot twin mortar launcher or his Decepticon photon cannon. It works though. I dig it. If you're really chuffed that the original toy designs weren't included, then designs exist online for you to print your own. All in all, though, this whole figure does the job. When looking at the complete package, I feel they did a good job in making a figure that can convert from one to the other accurately enough. Like the hand swap, for instance, is such a clever idea instead of trying to finagle the use of two sets of arms like the G1 did. And in general, enough changes are made to the overall appearance of both personas to differentiate the two aliases when looking at them head-on. But yeah, looking at his back would totally blow his cover. It's surprising he's lasted as long as he has infiltrating the Decepticons without someone figuring out his punch.
Alright, puny flesh creatures, let's play a game. Can you tell me which Cybertronian is my most loyal Decepticon?
Counterpunch!
Who, that guy?
Yeah!
That's Punch, you brainless worms! Counterpunch isn't even in this lineup!
Finally, we come to Barricade. What was once a predominantly black vehicle has had purple explode out everywhere, making him a two-tone robot, much like the red on blue streak. And I don't know what to think of this. Like all the areas where it is a purple, I'm totally on board with being a different color. I'm just not entirely sure if I like this choice of a desaturated lavender. Like imagine if they used the same purple as seen on his crest, or like a navy blue like the detailing on the Bayformer head, or the eventual Last Night color. Other choices could have even been this gray seen in the Studio Series release. I don't know, there's lots of colors that could have been. Muted lavender just feels like a weird choice. Colors aside, I still like the choice to take us from the smokescreen mold. The front bumper works for the type of character you think Barricade would be, as it's a little beefier than the Prowl mode, which goes a long way in that they're both police cars, and having them be identical would have been a little boring. But the screen versus Prowl debate aside, I love that they use this as a character base in general. Like, you compare it to the Studio Series, and you can totally see where some of the cues from the Bayformer design have made their way here. Like the front doors that say police are in a similar spot, though instead of shoulder guards, they're now the wings. The chest still has the front of the car in the same spot, the back of the car is still the bulk of the legs. Like, I really can't think of a better fit than the Datsun mold for Barricade Jaeger here. Maybe the Jazz mold could get away with it, but that's about it. Other great things about this release specifically is I'm quite enthralled with the metallic gold it coated the face in. It provides an excellent contrast to the gloss red eyes and just makes them pop against that royal purple head crest. All of which is set in that matte charcoal that gets surrounded by the glossy black. Like, I don't know, something about the way this whole thing goes together aesthetically just hits me in just the right way. Another fantastic decorative choice that is made can be seen in the legs. I mentioned earlier that the taillights were left unpainted, and that's a little unfortunate. However, they made up for it by painting the entirety of the clear plastic leg, which, when you look at what could have been compared to the blue streak leg and how malnourished they look, is a vast improvement, and a totally welcome one. It doesn't fix the fact they made it clear, but it certainly does look a ton better. It all comes together, though, to make for one of the better-looking Datsun mold figures that ever came out of Hasbro. Like, of the four, Blue Streak bias aside, this is clearly the superior variant and one I'm super glad I ended up getting my hands on. As for accessories, again, you get the shoulder cannons cast in the same mold as the shoulders that are identical to the ones seen in the other releases of the figure. And the rifle, which is the same mold. It's cast in purple, but this time around it actually gets painted and in the same metallic gold the face gets at that. Articulation features a rotating head and a ball joint with a wide range of movement in the tilt department as well. Even the smokescreen head mold has a good range, as well as the siege-swapped head. Arm joints that go out, elbows bend more than 90 degrees without looking weird at the elbow, rotate at the bicep, rotate at the hand, and rotate at the shoulder. Waist rotation, legs go all the way out, and a little bit back and ridiculously far forward. Like that is a kick if I ever saw one. Thighs rotate, and the knees bend like no tomorrow. Feet have an insane range in forward and backward movement as well as an ankle tilt. Like, it's absolutely nuts how far this deluxe figure can move. It's crazy! As for articulation on punch, the head fully rotates on a ball joint, so you get a little bit of tilt action in there too, and the helmet rotates back and forth to differentiate between the two. Something I wish was present was some sort of indent for the helmet to click into, as when trying to move the head, I'm more than likely to move the helmet than I am the head. Something else that would have been nice would be if the helmet moved further down as well. While the mouth plate guard thing works as the back of the head, Counterpunch's mouth does look a little weird just hanging out back here. Hey Punch.
What's up, Eyebrow?
I hope I'm not being too forward, but I've got a question.
Shoot.
Alright, so the other day I noticed this little mouth in the back of your head. What is that about?
Oh, yeah, that's just the mouth I talked to Rodimus with.
Talk to Rod? I don't get it.
Because he hates being back-talked to.
Arms rotate 360 degrees and go most of the way out, if not for the kibble getting in the way. Mind you, this isn't just an issue on this side, as Counterpunch also suffers from a kibble collision conundrum. Bicep swivel and 90-degree arms in both directions to accommodate alter egos, along with the flip-out hands. Waist swivel, which is somewhat surprising considering everything this figure does and it not being needed for transformation. Legs that go most of the way out, and most of the way forward and backward. A thigh swivel does actually exist on the ball jointed hips, but on both releases it is way too tight to actually make proper use of. And more often than not, it'll just pop off the ball joint if you're trying to make it happen. And finally, the knees bend in both directions, to really get that whole broken joint effect going, if that's what you're aiming for. But as far as the legs go, that's it. And given its era, it does kind of make sense, as there was rarely a release around that time that made use of any sort of foot articulation. But seeing a factory-produced figure 3 years into War for Cybertron without those extra joints just kind of feels weird now. For size comparison, Studio Series Barricade, Studio Series Jazz, Studio Series Dropkick, Studio Series Cup, Studio Series Wreckgar, Studio Series Sweep, Studio Series Scourge, Studio Series Sweep, Studio Series Grimlock, and Studio Series Slag. So that was my review for the Dominus Criminal Pursuit 2-pack. Barricade was such an unexpected win in my book. So much of both its vehicle and robot looks superb, and I can't recommend it enough. Punch, on the other hand, I'm not sure what to think of it. On the one hand, it's really nice that he was reissued so that more people could get their hands on a copy. On the other hand, he was yet again an Amazon exclusive, making it difficult to obtain for some countries. And on top of that, a lot of the paint apps and color choices from the really well done 2018 release are gone, and that is a bit of a disappointment. I still can recommend it though. If you didn't have a Counterpunch, then this is still a great figure. But if you have the choice between the two, this isn't the one I would tell you to go for. This has been the Lazy Eyebrow. Hey Barricade.
What?
Surprise!
Hey everyone, it's been a while, hasn't it? It has been 2 months since the Unicron review, which is kind of embarrassing. And then there was a diet review of the G1 figures in there somewhere. It's been a rough couple weeks, and Unicron definitely took a lot out of me, so that didn't help either. So yeah, so where do we go from here? Well, review 130, I have planned another duo. This didn't come in a pack, but I'm going to make it a duo review. It's going to be Hot Rod and Rodimus, because they are, while not my favorite characters, they are fantastic toys, and I want to do things with them. I want to animate them. So that's the plan. That's not happening until January, for it is December upon us, and I'd like to do some literary gimmick. We're going to do Diet December, where I crank out as much diet reviews as I can in the span of a month. We'll see how many I get done. I'm aiming for 3, but if I hit 5, oh my goodness, I'm flying. So maybe we'll hit 4, maybe we'll hit 3, who knows? We'll find out together, won't we? Thanks again to Citra for providing that Barricade Counterpunch Duo Pack, because he joked about it last year when I didn't do it for Siege, and then he came through in March, and my goodness, was I shocked when that happened. So yeah, thanks again to Citra for providing the basis for this review. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you all in the next video. This has been the Lazy Eyebrow.